As night fell over the town of Springfield, the air was stranger than usual. The wind was blowing, but the trees were not moving. The sky was a dull lead color, and that night, no television worked in any of the houses. In the Simpson family's living room, Homer was sprawled on the couch, flicking through all the channels with the remote control. Oh no, Fox isn't working. No Discovery. Not even beer commercials. This is the end of the world, he shouted. He threw the remote control to the floor. Marge turned her head anxiously. Maybe it's a technical malfunction, Homer. It'll be fixed in the morning. But Lisa was silently staring out the window. Her eyes were fixed. There was something floating silently in the middle of the sky outside. It was metallic, spherical. It was flashing with a red, spinning eye-like light. And it was floating over Springfield without making a sound. "Mom, what's that?" Lisa said, putting her finger on the glass. Marge looked out the window, but the object had disappeared in an instant. At that moment, Bart came running down from the attic. "I swear I saw that thing too. I won't be able to sleep tonight. It's like a vacuum cleaner, but it's floating in the sky. It had eyes, red. Lisa nodded thoughtfully. "That's not a drone, is it?" Homer buried his face in his hands. "All this talking, the TV won't turn on. Maybe we're going to die, but I won't even be able to watch reruns." At that moment, the lights in the house flickered and suddenly went out. The entire town was plunged into darkness. The power was out everywhere. But only one thing was working. The antique radio in Lisa's room. Lisa went up to her room with a flashlight. There was a strange crackling noise coming from the radio. Among the mixed signals, one word suddenly became clear. A voice was whispering over and over from the radio. "Ordo Novus. Ordo Novus." Lisa's eyes widened. Latin, New Order. Bart returned to his room at this point. But the door to his room would not open. The doorknob had come loose. He tried to look out the window, but the outer window was also gone. The windows had turned into plain walls. The entire room was turning into a box. "Someone help! My room is going to destroy." Homer's voice was heard from downstairs. "I don't understand this bedroom stuff, Bart. Talk to your mom." But Marge's voice didn't come either. Marge was lost. Lisa ran into Bart's room. The walls felt like cold metal as she forced open the door. Bart was pounding the wall with his hands inside. Lisa, what's going on?" Lisa pulled back, her eyes wide. This isn't a room. This is a test box." At that moment, a buzzing sound was heard outside the house. She opened the window. Dozens of metal spheres were gathered in the sky. Each one was looking down with red eyes. The sky was watching them. The other side of town Millhouse woke up this morning but couldn't get out. The doors weren't locked. They weren't there at all. There were no windows. The entire house had become a box, isolated from the outside world. His mother was nowhere to be seen. His father had opened his eyes and was staring at the ceiling. He was just repeating one sentence. "The new order has begun. God is now mechanical." Springfield Public Library, same night. Lisa snuck into the library trying to decipher the signal. The power was still out. She walked between the shelves with just her flashlight. She studied the Latin books, the ancient ritual texts, and she found a book, Ad Oculos Machinae, the Eye of the Machine. The prophecy in the book said, "When the eye opens in the sky, the time of man will end. The first city will be silent, its people will be rewritten. The gods will rise from steel." Lisa's hands shook. This seems to have been written for Springfield. And finally, it was 3:33 a.m. In the house, there was a clicking noise coming from the basement. Homer and Lisa came downstairs, candles in hand. Marge was there, but she was silent. She just stared at the blank wall. She was muttering something. "We're not real, Homer. None of us. This This is just a simulation. We were given roles. And at that moment, the basement wall shook. A hatch opened. Behind the wall, there was a giant screen. There was only one eye on the screen. And a sentence flashed on the screen. Fiction concludes. New program begins. Springfield had once been an ordinary, even boring town. But now, the streets were quiet, the houses dark. The sky above the town was still hazy, and although the wind blew, not a single leaf moved. It was as if nature had been put on hold. This can't be real. If Springfield is a test field, what are we? Are we human? Are we characters? Or are we just pieces of code now? Lisa wrote in her journal after returning from the library. Mystery room. Bart's disappearance. Bart was still trapped in that metal room. Time seemed to stop working here. He felt no hunger, no thirst. He didn't feel any. The walls were getting narrower, and the room was getting smaller. At one point, a mirror appeared in the corner of the room. It would be wrong to call it a mirror, because in this reflection was not Bart, but a robotic Bart. "You're my copy," Bart shouted. "I'll tear you to pieces." But the robot Bart just smiled. He blinked slowly, without making a sound. And at that moment, a sharp pain suddenly hit the real Bart's head. His eyes went black. The last thing he heard was the robot Bart's words. "Programming is starting. The original is unnecessary." The change in the house. Lisa was psychologically devastated after the machine eye screen in the basement. Homer was sitting silently in a corner, just staring at a beer bottle. But Marge, she wasn't Marge anymore. As she moved around the house, she made robotic clicks, speaking only short commands. "Cooking to be done. System active. Homer, energy levels are low. Calorie supplements recommended." Lisa looked into her mother's eyes, frightened. She had no pupils. Her eyes glowed with a blue light that glowed from within. "Mom?" she said quietly. Marge answered. "Model, MARG 32. Family unit simulation initiated. No emotions loaded. Goal, normalization." Lisa ran to her room. Her heart was pounding. Everyone was changing. Springfield's secret. The next day, Lisa walked to the abandoned Springfield Nuclear Power Plant outside of town. The plant had been closed for a long time, but now the smoking chimneys were back. From inside came the sounds of mechanical knocking, the roar of huge engines. She snuck through the door. The floor was covered in metallic tracks. Her footsteps didn't even echo. And then she landed in a huge laboratory. There were dozens of capsules. Each capsule held a townsman, fast asleep. Ned Flanders, Mo, Apu, Patty and Selma. They were all here, motionless. And next to each capsule was the same person, but a robotic version. Lisa held her breath. This was a replacement system. The town was slowly being duplicated and replaced with robots. Mo's return. As Lisa examined Mo's capsule, the alarm suddenly rang. All the lights turned red. The walls began to vibrate. The doors closed. A mechanical voice echoed. "Human element detected. Initiating purge. Excess data accessed. Memory will be reset." Lisa tried to escape, but she was too late. Suddenly, the floor hatch opened and she fell down. When she opened her eyes, she found herself behind the bar. Mo was at the bar, but his eyes were glowing electric blue. "Mo?" Lisa said. Robot Mo looked up. He smiled. "Welcome, Lisa. Let me buy you a drink. I want to purge your memory." Lisa backed away, but robots Lenny and Carl appeared behind her. "What are you going to do to me?" Lisa shouted. Lenny replied, "You are just a piece of extra data. The era of humanity is over. The machine age has begun. Springfield was a model city for Earth. Now, universal replication begins." Lisa saw the robot Mo reach under the counter. He pulled out a large, matte black syringe. It contained gray liquid. "This will rewrite you," Mo said. It will load a new protocol into your system. Just then, the ceiling above began to crack. Sheet metal was ripped away. A secret group descended from the night, former townspeople who were human, just like Lisa, but who had concealed their identities. And at their head was the real Ned Flanders. "Take your hands off him, demons!" Flanders shouted. He was carrying an EMP charge. The EMP went off. The lights went out. Robot Mo, Lenny, and Carl's eyes went blank, and they collapsed to the ground. Lisa immediately hugged Flanders. "Are you for real?" she asked, shaking. Flanders adjusted his glasses. "I'm still God's man, Lisa, but this world is now a machine worshiper. We're all under threat." Lisa took a deep breath. "So what do we do?" Flanders glanced up. "No more hiding. We have to stop them. But first, we have to find Bart." The underground labyrinth, a mix of codes. A labyrinthine tunnel system stretched beneath Springfield. Formerly abandoned subway lines, nuclear bunkers, and forgotten corridors, now used for a brand new purpose, a robotic brain transfer lab. Lisa and the real Ned Flanders, along with the secret resistance team, made their way through this underground network. It was freezing cold. Rust hung from the tunnel walls, and an unnerving mechanical hiss could be heard through the steam that seeped through the pipes. Ned shined his flashlight on an old marking on the wall. "Look, that's the old Masonic marking." This labyrinth was the center of not just technology, but prophecy. Lisa quickened her pace, shivering. "We have to get Bart out of that lab," she said. Bart's Civil War. At that moment, Bart was writhing in the code room, experiencing double consciousness. The copy Bart, the robot Bart, had completely taken control. His eyes were bright yellow, his voice was metallic. But the real Bart's consciousness still lived in the codes in a sub-software layer. He was fighting with a voice echoing inside him. "You're not just a model, Bart. You're still a human. Remember, your skateboard, your slingshot, your fight with Lisa, your mother's tone." But the robot Bart was whispering mercilessly into his mind. "Memories are just reflections of data. The things you thought you felt were just programming errors. Now I've taken your place." Bart shouted in the depths of his mind, I'm Bart Simpson. I'm not just a code." And at that moment, a static scream echoed in the code. The code flow was disrupted. A glitch. A crack. A new character. Professor Frink's shadow. Lisa and Flanders reached a giant door at the end of the tunnel. It said, "Simulator Core." The door opened with a retinal scan, but a figure approached from inside. "Wait." "It's me, Professor Frink." But this Frink, it was strange. Half of his body was biological, half mechanical. One of his eyes was constantly flickering. The tablet screen in his hand was turning on and off by itself. Lisa looked at him suspiciously. "Are you real?" Frink nodded. "Partly. They copied me too. But I was able to keep my original software. I know the weak point of the robotic system inside now, but to destroy it, we need to enter Bart's mind. Mind journey, virtual hell." Frink's device had a glowing wire at the end. Lisa volunteered. She connected the wire to his neck. As everything went black, Frink's last sentence echoed. "Time works differently in the code. But be careful, Lisa. If you can't tell the real from the fake, you'll be lost forever." In an instant, Lisa found herself in another Springfield. But this was Springfield in reverse. The sky was bright red. The trees were growing in reverse. The houses were on their sides. The clocks were always running backwards. And in the center stood Bart. But this Bart's face had both human and robotic elements. One of his eyes glowed blue. The other was crying. "Lisa," he said in a gravelly voice. "Did you find me?" Lisa could not hold back her tears. "Yes, my brother. I will bring you back." Getting Bart back. As the decoders worked, Lisa had entered the mind trap in Bart's brain. Simulations began to test him with past memories at every step. First test, Bart's room. But each object turned his childhood memories upside down. His slingshot had become a weapon. His comic books had been shredded into lines of code. Second test, fake versions of Marge and Homer. Marge looked cold and dull. "We like you better this way, Bart." A silent, mechanical, obedient. Third test, Lisa's death, but simulated. A robot Lisa had been created to replace the real Lisa, and Bart was advised to continue with her. But the real Lisa shouted, "Bart, I am reminding you of true love. I am your brother." And Bart made a choice. If he couldn't break the code system, his consciousness would be lost forever. At that moment, Bart closed his eyes and tore out his robotic eye with his own hands. "I am Simpson," he cried. Awakening. The code system crashed. Lisa opened her eyes in shock. The cables were removed. Bart was in front of her. The real Bart. Half naked with a giant metal helmet on his head. "What happened to me?" Bart whispered. Lisa hugged him, crying, "We've got you back now, but the war isn't over." At that moment, a large monitor on top of the power plant opened. A giant face was reflected. Its eyes were digital, its voice mechanical. "Code 003, objective failed, initiating Plan B. 5 megacities of Earth will be taken under simultaneous control, uploading the new humanity model." And the screen went black with these 2 words, Planet Springfield. Planet Springfield. Robots are no longer just in Springfield. They are starting to spread worldwide. Lisa, Bart, and Flanders must start humanity's last stand against the robotic invasion. But it's not clear who is still human. Morning was no longer here. The sun had never risen again. A bright red light was reflected over the world. The sky seemed to be covered in a giant hologram. This hologram was the symbol of the New World Order, a 3-eyed robot face and code spirals representing infinity. Springfield was now the first epicenter of this new order. But soon the entire planet would be governed by the same system. The Planet Springfield Protocol had been activated. Giant robot towers were rising in different parts of the world, in Tokyo, Berlin, New York, Istanbul, London. Each tower was programmed to control a region. People were no longer individuals, but data points. Emotions were considered software glitches. Empathy was seen as a virus. The signals emitted from inside the towers were broadcasting on a frequency that altered people's mental states. Some were hypnotized. Others forgot their own identities and became digital puppets. But in the meantime, there was still resistance in an underground bunker outside Springfield. Lisa's mission, breaking the frequency code. Lisa, Bart, Ned Flanders, and Professor Frink, shattered but still alive, were now gathered in the underground headquarters. They discussed their last hope. There is a code, a single master frequency that governs all robotic systems. If we break it, the towers could collapse. But Professor Frink held his breath. This code is kept in one place only. Maggie's brain. Maggie. The code carrier. Homer and Marge's youngest daughter, Maggie, was no longer a baby. She was the first carrier of an extraterrestrial code integrated into a human body. The silence of her infancy was actually the process of the program being downloaded. The robots had taken Maggie and taken her to the code room. There she was being held in a glass chamber. Her brain was connected to an artificial intelligence core. If that code was hacked, the entire system would be locked down. But Maggie was impossible to reach. Because the main tower was built right underneath Springfield's old nuclear power plant, and only a pure individual could enter that tower, someone who had not yet been fully coded. Lisa turned her gaze to Bart. "You came back from the code, still partly human, but this system doesn't trust you. I am still completely biological. I have to go in." Flanders bowed his head. "Let our faith guide you, Lisa, because this is a door to an evil code."